Hey, y'all.
Y'all, welcome to A Rough Draft Life. And this is my sweet Southern friend, Donna Muma.
Hey.
We are so excited to have here tonight so we can celebrate her brand new book, her debut novel, Fresh Scars, right?
Yay. Yes.
Yay.
Fresh Scars.
Fresh Scars. Yay, we're so excited. My name is Lindsay Brackett, and if you are a regular around here for Rough Draft Life parties, you know that usually it's me and it's Christy Ann Hunter. And oftentimes Christy pops in and says hi, and then she goes backstage and she does backstage magical things that I do not know how to do, and that she has refused to teach me. It's true. It is true that she's refused. And so instead, though, of having Christy here with us tonight, because Christy is with her kids at dance competition, instead we have our delightful production manager, Jessica Baker, and she's hiding backstage and refusing to even be seen, doing all the magical things. So, yay, Jessica, we're so happy to have you here. So glad that you know how to do this, because the truth is that I have no idea. And Christy refuses to teach me because she knows I don't care to learn. So there you go. Let's see. Jeannie, I hope I'm saying that right. Jeannie Cagle Waters is saying hi to Donna.
Hey, Jeannie. Thanks for coming by.
If you're here, please be sure to say hello. Drop a comment or a GIF or a bunch of emojis and let us know you're here and that you're celebrating with Donna. For those of you who do not know Donna Muma, well, here she is. She's over here to my left side. StreamYard is backwards, so I have to figure this out. Taryn Suiters is here. Hey, Taryn.
Hey, Taryn, thanks for coming.
And Crystal. Hey, Crystal. I know lots of these people from WC. That's so fun.
It's all my word weaver buds.
I love it. We're going to talk. You know what? We need to make sure we talk about word weavers.
Yes, we
have that on my list. We will absolutely discuss that.
I wouldn't be here without word weavers.
I know. Me either. So, Taryn's so excited to read the book. Hey, Claire. Hey, Claire Fullerton's another one of our lovely.
Hello.
Hey. So, my name's Lindsay Brackett. I am a Southern fiction writer, and Donna Muma also writes. Well, I guess we could call it Southern fiction too. Takes place in the South, right? There you go.
It is.
Pretty much the main caveat there is that it takes place in the South.
Well, it is, and it's I call it suspense seasoned with a little, Southern charm.
I love it. Suspense seasoned with some Southern charm. Well, I write for LPC Books, and so does Donna. So we're so happy to welcome her to the LPC family. And a lot of us who are coming by today to say hi are products of the Florida Christian Writers Conference. So we want to say a shout out to FCWC.
Yes.
And Taryn can tell us in the comments. I think the early bird is still happening. So you can still get your registration in for FCWC in October. It is a fantastic conference. I highly, highly recommend it to all writers. But today, we're going to talk about Donna. We're going to talk about her writing journey. We're going to talk about her new book. We're going to give you a chance to ask questions. Please participate, because every time you participate, you are entering yourself to win a prize. Donna, tell us about the prizes.
Okay, we've got the first one is this. See if I can get it there. It is a cute little candle with an outline of the state.
And Florida candle. And
it smells like oranges and kind of orange blossoms. Everything I picked has something to do either with the setting of the book, Florida, and this particular area of Florida where I set it, which is actually where I grew up, or something to do with the characters. Wonderful. So they're all kind of Florida themed or the book themed. So the first one is this candle. I have a second candle again with Florida. Let me see. There we go. Florida, and established in 1845, which is when Florida became a state. And it smells kind of citrusy too, a little bit different scent. And then I have a cute little purse-sized planner. I will get this straight. Here we go.
StreamYard's backwards, and it throws everybody off.
It does. Yeah. And then a matching it's a mouse pad and coaster to use, and I'll tell the story why I picked that when we get a little bit later.
Yay.
I have some pens and a journal that match.
Wonderful.
And then finally, for the big grand prize, I have a $50 Visa gift card.
Listen, Donna is spoiling y'all. You need all your friends to hop on here. I want to see lots of comments. I want to see lots of participation as a chance to win these prizes. I'm so sad for you, Evelyn, that your book has not arrived yet.
Oh, no. I would
call somebody for you, but I don't know who I would call.
I don't know either. I don't know.
Hers didn't arrive yet either. Well, maybe they're just coming, like maybe they'll be in later. I don't know. It depends on, I think, where you ordered it from.
Could be.
I just have no idea about that. I'm so sorry. But you know what? It's available on Kindle. So you can get it on Kindle to go ahead and read. And then when it comes in paperback, then you'll have it. Oh, Jeannie says her copy arrived today and she stopped working on her proposal so she could read it. That's
I love it.
true friendship right there.
I'm saying.
I love it. All right. So I want to make sure that all of you who don't know Donna, and I think it sounds like a lot of you do. I want to make sure that you really get a chance to meet her this evening. I had the chance to meet Donna. Well, we met several times at the Florida Christian Writers Conference, but I particularly remember our last conference, well, y'all had one actually back in whenever that was, a few months ago, that I couldn't come to. But the last true one that we had pre-COVID in 2019, I remember that I was there and Eva had asked me, Eva Marie Everson is the acquisitions editor for Firefly Southern Fiction. She had asked me to be her that day.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult to be Eva.
Yes, it
did my
is.
best. And so, well, she had asked me to sit and to take pitches and to bring her anything that I thought was interesting and to really be encouraging to new writers, as we always try to be. And so Donna came and sat with me and told me about her book. And I was so
excited. I did.
You had been working on it for such a long time. And I remember talking to Eva afterwards and she said, I think Donna's almost ready. I think it's almost time. And I was so excited because I knew that was coming your way. So I'm so happy for you that it's here and you can hold it in your hands. Do you have a copy right there where you can show us? Did you just hold it?
My baby.
Wow, it's a great cover.
I love the cover. Eva called me when it was ready. And she said, I just sent you something and I want you to open it. And I did. And when I did, I was just amazed because when I saw that picture on the front cover, I thought, oh my gosh, that's Asia, one of the main characters. And I said, Eva, I don't know how they did it. That is exactly how I saw her. And then the angsty look in her eye and the kind of, you can tell she's troubled. They just captured who she was so perfectly. And then the effect of kind of the shattered glass that she's staring through and everything. It just, to me, it so perfectly captured it. And I told her the font that they used, I loved because it had kind of a, the old movie Psycho vibe to it.
Yeah.
And I said, I love that. It just all came together so well and so well represented what I felt the story really was about, and how she is in the story.
That is wonderful because lots of times people ask me this all the time. How did you choose your cover? And we don't choose our covers. They have professional people who do that for us. And so sometimes you're happy and sometimes you're not. And so it's really wonderful when the very first time they get it right. So that's wonderful.
They did. I mean, the colors were so good.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. But I was just saying the colors were so good. When I saw it, it was just, you just kind of get that thing. It's like, oh my gosh, that's my book. And then you see your name on it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is really happening.
Yeah. Wait till you go to the library and it's shelved.
It's going to be on the shelf somewhere.
It's on the shelf. Yes. It's very exciting. I substitute teach a good bit, and sometimes the students will hear that I'm a writer and they have my books in the school library and they'll go down there and pull them out and they're kind of like, they look at my headshot and they look at me and they look at the headshot. They're trying to decide if they really believe that's me. They're always very impressed. They can Google my name. So it's really
a big deal. It is.
It makes me feel like a superstar. So it's awesome.
You do, in my own little corner of the world. Yeah.
You are. I always tell people I'm very famous in a 3-county radius.
3 counties, you cannot beat that.
You really can't. You really can't.
No.
So let's hear a little bit about who Donna is, you all. Okay. So Donna Muma has been writing since she was 8. She has won awards for speculative and women's fiction as well as devotions. An avid believer in education, she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Education and a Master of Education in Elementary Education. She serves as a chapter mentor for Word Weavers International. Donna now lives on the west coast of Florida with her husband. She's the mom of 2 college boys and 1 energetic collie named Duke. Her favorite things are faith, family, alligators, a warm cup of tea, and sunflowers.
That's it.
So My daughter's new favorite thing is sunflowers, so I think you and her would get along just fine.
I love it. They're just so happy and cheerful. And my dad used to grow them in our garden. We had a vegetable garden every summer on our farm.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to grow the really tall, like they get over 6 feet tall. And then, once they bend over, you got the sunflower seeds. So to me, they were such a great flower because they had a dual purpose. They were pretty. And then once they got rotten looking, they still produced something that was usable. So I always thought they were cool.
They were the flower that keeps on giving, for sure.
Exactly. There you go.
I love
that.
So I'm so glad that Dina is asking this question in the comments, because we are 100% going to have to discuss the alligators. Listen, I know you are a Florida girl.
I am.
And I am a low country girl at heart. I really am. But
okay.
I don't have any alligator story. Well, actually, I do have one alligator story, but it's really my mama's story. So we want to hear your alligator story. Tell us one of these fun childhood stories about the capsized boat and the alligator, and what inspired you to become a writer.
Well, I don't know where the love of alligators actually came from. All I can say is I've just always been fascinated by them. Even when I was little, if a National Geographic special came on about alligators, I had to see it. Even if I'd seen it before, I had to see it. And every time we went anywhere in a boat, out fishing, because my dad had a bass boat and we lived, there's a large lake in the county where we lived. And we would go out fishing and you'd see them. So they were just always a part of there. And we had ponds and a creek on my parents' farm. And we'd also see them there. So I think it was just, they look like dinosaurs. And I've always kind of had an affinity for monster movies anyway. So that may have been kind of what drew me to it. And then, I grew up to graduate from the University of Florida, so I'm officially a Gator. So it just kind of all came together like that. And the airboat story actually was something that happened to my dad. We had a guy that worked for him who was he was single and had another friend of his, and they would go out airboating late at night. And one time
you may have to describe the airboat.
Okay. Airboat is they have a flat platform and then a huge propeller in the back protected by a cage that is similar to an airplane propeller. And they sound just like an airplane motor going off. And in Florida, we've got lakes that are of varying depths. They can be really deep or they can be shallow. And then, of course, we've got areas where there's very thick grass or hydrilla or other plants. And they're hard to get through on a regular boat. But an airboat, because it skims over the top, can go right over them. And they can also go over the flats if a lake is down, because Florida lakes vary in depth throughout, depending on the rainy season or whatever. So they can go over sandbars and things. So a lot of the folks where I grew up had them. And going out and fishing at night was a favorite thing that they would do, or just going out to ride around. My dad never had one. I've never been on one because they kind of scare me. But
scary looking.
Yeah. They are. And because I knew people flipped them over all the time, I didn't want to ride with anybody that we knew, because most of the people that I knew, they had flipped theirs at least once or twice, because they're kind of top heavy and they do have a tendency to flip if the air gets under them or they're driving crazy or something. So these two guys that were friends of my dad's were out one night boating and they flipped theirs and it sunk to the bottom of the river. They were in the Withlacoochee River and it sank to the bottom of the river. And they're out there. It's after midnight. So it's pitch black dark and they're seeing snakes and alligators and things swimming by.
I'm out.
I know. I'm sad. Well, I don't remember. I think it was about 3 or 4 in the morning. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning. Our phone rang. And it was someone who my dad did not know, but said, "Do you know these two guys named so-and-so and so-and-so?" My dad said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, they flipped their boat and they want you to get your boat and come out there and get them. They're in the Withlacoochee River. Theirs is sunk. Could you please come get them?" Well, the issue with that is my dad usually got up early, about 4:30 in the morning, to go start milking the cows on the dairy. So he got out of bed, got his boat, went and searched and found these two guys, took them in so they could at least get out of the water. And then they later on in the day, they had to go back and bail out the boat and get it off the bottom of the river and then kind of, tuck their tails and go home. So, I just always remember, because the big thing that they always talked about was, they're in the water. They can't really get out of the water because the area where they were was quite swampy. So there really wasn't any dry land to get on. And they're watching the alligator, and alligators feed at night. So
I do feed at night.
Yeah. So 2 crazy Florida boys, got themselves in a mess.
I love this person who says you can use it as a scene for your next book. That is some Southern fiction seasoned with suspense.
It is. And it's only something that could happen, in the South, where people do things like that. So.
No. Yeah, your dad was brave. They're saying Dad's the hero of this story. I love it. So, somebody mentioned, I think it was Taryn, that you have lots of good Southern sayings. You want to give us a Southern saying?
Oh, goodness. Well, I know when somebody's really upset or about to lose it, they have like a flying duck fit, which was I actually didn't know. I found that I was looking up something one day for the book, and I was thinking of one other one, but I couldn't remember exactly how people used to say it, because the way I was remembering it wasn't as funny. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking that one up on this. I was Googling funny Southern sayings and found flying duck fit. And I thought, okay, that one, I don't care what I was looking for. This one now is in the book. This is too great to not use.
I remember that. One time I said that somebody was having a hissy fit to a friend of mine who, bless her heart, is in the North. Yes. And she did not know what I was talking about. She was like, what do you mean? Right. They're having a tantrum. They're having a hissy fit.
Yeah, I think I used hissy fit in the book. I know I used frog wash for a big storm. Big rainstorms coming up. That's a frog wash.
Yeah, that's a gully washer.
A gully washer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't remember. I know I used a lot of them, but one saying my dad used to always say was, you might as well get glad in the same pants you got mad in. We'd start fussing about, it's not fair or whatever, is kind of like, you can't change it, so you might as well get over it and move on. That was kind of.
I'm going to steal that from my children. That's
I used it on mine. Well, it works.
Speaking of kids, you are really passionate about education. So tell us a little bit about that as your background and how it has inspired you as a writer.
Well, I taught first grade for several years. And one big thing I like the little
substitute teach in the elementary school, because y'all have to do a lot of work.
It's funny. My last year of teaching, I actually taught 4th grade, and I got bored because in first grade, you're changing gears about every 15 minutes all day long.
Yeah.
In 4th grade, you give them their assignment and they sit down and they work. And unless somebody needs help, you don't have to do anything. And so I was so used to all the chaos of 6 and 7-year-olds that I really didn't know. It took me a while to get used to, I have free time. I can actually grade papers. These people can take care of themselves for a little while. I don't have to watch everybody every 5 minutes, So, but when I was teaching first grade, I always tried to do things to encourage them to just enjoy using language. Like we would do show and tell every Friday, and they could bring in something. And I just wanted them to learn how to describe things and talk about things and use their imagination, because I just felt like that kids weren't spending as much time reading and playing outside and things and just, playing pretend like we did. So I always tried to give them a lot of chances to just make up crazy stories and talk about it. And when they got to the point where they could write a little bit, I'd say, write a funny story, draw a funny picture and write a funny story, because I always wanted them to love reading, but also to enjoy writing.
Yes.
And enjoy the love of characters. And I read to my kids in my classroom every day, and not just books that were like first grade level. I'd pick stuff that was a little higher, that they might not necessarily understand everything, but it kind of could let their minds go and just roam free a little bit.
I love that. I love that. So we are coming to the portion of our show where we are going to take some questions from the audience.
Okay.
So, lovely audience members,
Fun.
if you have questions for Donna about her book, about alligators, about the best way to not flip an airboat, you just drop those right there in the comments and we will get to them. I promise. But I love people saying they're honored. They were always hoped their kids would get teachers like you, Donna. That's a wonderful thing. Be sure to participate because every time you participate, you are being entered to win one of those wonderful prizes that Donna has. And most importantly, I want to hear what kind of Southern sayings other people have. So they should drop.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I know Karen's got some because I've heard her say them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I've heard Karen say them too.
And those Texas ones.
Well, we're getting some good questions here. Deb wants to know, is it fiction? It is. This is a novel. So this one is fiction. Maybe inspired by some true things or no?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot in there. There are several places that I don't name. I just kind of mentioned they were at this place. There's only one specifically that I mentioned that is the actual place in Sumter County where the book takes place. Mm-hmm. Others are mentioned, but I didn't name them.
Okay. So that was, and Crystal was asking about that. What really inspired the story? I love this one. What are a few of your favorite books?
Oh, my favorite books. Probably at the top of the list would have to be Gone with the Wind. That is probably the book that made me a writer because I fell in love with the movie first and watched it as much as I could growing up because they would put it on TV every once in a while.
Oh, yes. My daughters they saw it for the very first time on television with all the commercials. It lasted for like 6 hours. At my parents' house with my dad, who insisted that they sit with him and watch this movie, and they got so tired of his commentary that they went upstairs so they snuck away. They wanted to finish it, but they didn't want him talking.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, it's there's a lot of great sweeping just saga in it, and just, I think one of the best literary characters ever because we all remember her. And then
her, and yet also you're cheering for her.
Yes, you are. Even though if you look at her individually as a person, she's pretty rotten.
Oh, she's terrible.
She's a terrible person. But Margaret Mitchell wrote her in such a way that you want to cheer for her. And come on, And when she makes her declaration in the vegetable garden, we're all just standing right there. We're not going to ever go hungry again.
No.
And then I love Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. She wrote Florida-based stories. We read those when I was in school. So she was. I love that she showed the old cracker side of Florida because a lot of folks don't realize there is a southern section in Florida. I know a lot of people joke you have to go north to go south in Florida, and it's true. But you also, if you can go up the middle of the state, up the spine of the state, there's quite a bit of southern still left there. Because where I grew up, of course, was very southern when I was growing up. It's changing now because of developments comes everywhere. But, I liked that she showed that side of Florida that a lot of people don't really know, or, it kind of faded away. And it's nice to read that, and remember the history. And then I also love James Herriot. Was a veterinarian, and he wrote kind of factual-based fiction, I think, or fiction-based fact. It was kind of a mixture of both. But I just loved his books because he's hilarious, but he also knows just the right time to mix a little bit of tug your heart in with humor. And just, he makes the stories really aren't just about the animals. It's about the people and the relationships and how all of that worked together in his life. And I love those. I probably read those at least once a year. I think there's 4 of them in his series.
Those are all great recommendations, and I love that they are classics. Taryn has a really serious question. Taryn, do we need to talk about pizza toppings? I need to have a discussion.
I have to tell you, I went home this past weekend to take some pictures. I went and stayed with my sister, and we ordered pizza. And I had pineapple on my pizza as a topping for the very first time.
Did you like it?
And I liked it. It was not bad. We had a Hawaiian pizza. It was pizza and ham.
Yeah, you can only have the pineapple with the ham or pepperoni. Like it has to be like a good salty meat to cut the sweet.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought it was good. I didn't think it was bad. I'd not have it, but I liked it.
Oh, awesome. I like it. Taryn says she loves pineapple too. Okay, good. These are, now we've got some good serious questions. How long
wow.
from the idea to the book? And that goes along with somebody else was asking what motivated you to keep going. Because I mentioned that it took you a while to get published.
Okay. I started, to tell you the truth, I don't remember when I actually started writing Fresh Scars. I had written an action adventure spec fiction book, and it never found a home. I kind of hit the market a little bit earlier than spec fiction took off in the Christian market. Mm-hmm. And so I started Fresh Scars, I don't know, probably maybe early 2000s. I mean, I've been working on it about 10 years maybe.
Wow.
But part of that time, I worked on it for a little while, and then I stopped for a few years because life happened and some other things came up, and then I picked it back up. And probably seriously writing it, not stopping and keeping going, was about maybe 5.5, 6 years. But again, in the midst of that, I was homeschooling kids and then getting kids through high school, and then doing all the high school, our kids were very involved in band and jazz band and music. And so, I just didn't have the time to write because I was busy being mom. I was a band mom. And so I wouldn't write at a steady time. So that's why it took a long time. And what kept me going, I guess, just I wanted to get it done. I had finished one book and I wanted to finish this one. And I had to rewrite this one so many times because it is very much out of my wheelhouse. I normally never wrote anything like that. I tended to write the more plot-driven, action-driven stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I got the idea for this one, I knew it was going to be a stretch. And I knew that I was going to have to learn to write in a different way. And thankfully, I was working with a freelancer, Shelly Arnold, at the time. And Shelly taught me how to do it. She would send my stuff back and go, nope, you got to dig deeper. You've got to think about, what they're feeling and why they're feeling and the why behind the why, and keep digging until you find that final thing. And that was really hard because I'm more of an analytical person. I'm not, as Shelly says, she wears her feelings on her shoulder. So she and I were a good combination to work together because she kind of pulled me out of that step back and analyze thing and think about the feelings and think about where, the characters as real people, mm-hmm. and not just kind of little, characters that I'm moving through. And so that, that again is a lot of what took me so long, is I had to learn how to write in a completely different way.
So would you say that was maybe the most frustrating part? What was the most difficult, most frustrating thing to get?
That by far is trying to figure out how to do that, because she would send her comments back and I would read them and I would think, I don't know how to do that. And we would actually have phone conversations, and I would tell her, I don't understand how to do that. And it wasn't that she was telling me something that was bad. It was just, I couldn't see it through her eyes the way I needed to. Right. And then little by little, it started to click. This is what you need to do. And it was interesting to me, as soon as I started getting what she was saying, the two main characters became human. It was like I started seeing them as people, and I started thinking about, what would they wear and how would they eat and how would they wear their hair, and then things started going after that. It finally started to flow.
Yes, because then you can their motivations, why they're making.
Yes, that was the hardest thing, was figuring out, why were they doing what they were doing and why were they reacting the way they were acting, and then having to set up what's going to make that believable. Because you have to have a truth in there that, I can't just have them acting a certain way. I had to have a true, authentic thing, why they had to do that.
And it also, everything they do has to impact, ultimately, the plot, even in a character-driven.
Yes, absolutely. It all had to work together. And sometimes it didn't, and I had to go back and rewrite it.
Eva told me once, it was one of the very first things I ever heard her say, books are not written, books are edited. And it just has stuck with me that nobody writes that beautiful book straight out of the head. They don't. I actually listened to a podcast today. It was a Friends in Fiction podcast, and they were interviewing Pam Genoff, and she's a New York Times bestselling author and a lawyer and a diplomat. And I mean, just she makes everybody else look like we're not doing anything. But she talked about how this was like her 10th novel, Girl with a Blue Star. And she said when she first turned it in, the editor was like, yeah, no, no, just here.
Yeah.
Let's just redo this completely. And she
Right.
had to, I mean, it's like, and she's a New York Times bestselling author already.
Right.
You know,
I had pitched it to a couple of agents at FCWC and sent it to them, and one passed on it. She said she just couldn't get into it. And then I sent it to another one, and this agent liked it, but said, I don't think your character motivations for what's happening are strong enough. And I said, so I wrote back and I said, well, if I changed it, would you be willing to take a second look? Sure. So I worked on it, rewrote the beginning, rewrote the middle, and then had to change the ending, sent it back and said, oh, wow, really good. Much better. You've done some great work here. Still not strong enough, though. So I said, would you give me a third look? Absolutely. You've done, I see the change here. I'm curious to see where you go. Send it back a third time. Read through it, again, changed the beginning, changed the middle, changed the end. And got, eventually got a pass on it, but through all that, it made it a better book. And then I pitched it to my agent who I'm with now, and they liked it, and thought it was okay as it was. And then, of course, Eva picked it up. So
that's an awesome story of perseverance.
Well, and I had to learn. And the great thing was the sending it back those 3 times was almost like getting free teaching from the agent, because I was getting, great feedback on what was wrong and what needed to be fixed. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to dig in and figure this out and see what it needs to do and try to do that. So I really wanted to work with that agent, and I was, you're disappointed when they say no, but looking back now, it was still a very valuable thing that happened and made it a good book.
And they really poured into you in a way that agents do not have to do. So that was a really kind thing to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually had the opportunity at last year's FCWC to talk to that one who passed and tell them, I really appreciated the time that you took.
And they appreciated being appreciated.
They did. Absolutely.
Taryn's over here giving shameless plugs for FCWC, but it is true that if you're a writer and you're looking for a smaller writing conference, and I only say smaller just because it's like 200, 250 usually people wise, maybe smaller this year because we're still kind of dealing with some COVID things. But it's a great conference to really dip your toes into the publishing world and to meet editors and meet agents, and most of all, meet people who are kind and who are nice and who are willing to give of themselves and of their talent and of their time more than anything else. So Claire's shameless endorsement, she's concurring with that. So I think we missed a question. Someone wanted to know if your characters were inspired by any real people.
Not particularly. I mean, the 2 main characters, Ivy especially, she's the 2 main characters. You have Asia, who's a little more quiet and sensitive and thoughtful, and you have Ivy, who's very brash, very say it like I think it right away. She's very confrontational and such. She's kind of a combination of some people that I kind of knew a long time ago, but kind of took things that I knew about them and really kind of stretched it as far as I could. But for the most part, I try not to base my characters on real people, because then I start feeling like I'm just writing those people. I try to really kind of come up with just people that I don't know or people that I wouldn't run into. So they can just kind of feel new and different to me.
I like to take little bits and pieces of different people and kind of.
I do that.
Deposit.
I admit I will do that, but I try to, take, from 2 very opposite people and see if I can mash that together and make, one brand new person.
That's really fun. I like that.
It is.
I went to a book event today, and I went with my aunt, who happily introduced herself to people as this is my niece, and she's a writer, and I'm in her book. I did loosely base it on family, and so she knew who she was in the book.
And that's fun too. If the family can say, "Hey, that's me," and they don't get offended. That's fun too. Mm-hmm. I love reading books where there are characters and I knew that person. I knew her, I knew him. Those are fun because then you're immediately connected to that.
Yes, when you feel like you can really identify with them. So this is a great place then for me to tell people, in case they don't know, what your book's about. So, Fresh Scars, Time Heals All Wounds, or Does It? Asia Butler and her sister, Ivy Butler Morelli, have not spoken in 15 years. As children, they endured brutal emotional abuse from their mother, Veronica, and will only to forget the past and each other. But the past comes calling when they receive a letter from Veronica's attorney promising much needed cash if they will fulfill her dying wish and consent to cleaning out their childhood home. Asia and Ivy reluctantly return to their hometown of Emerson, Florida, only to discover the house is a hoarder's nightmare, filled with strange mementos and clues hinting that they were not the only victims of Veronica's sadistic nature. Can this new pain be the path to their healing? Will they be able to choose forgiveness over resentment? Available for pre-order. Actually, now just available for order.
Available, yep. It came out everywhere. Yep.
So it sounds so good. And what I love is I've read several different books that deal with this topic. It is I don't want to use the word trope right now, but it is a common theme we're seeing kind of crop up in literature where you've got the characters who have to clean out the hoarder's home. And then ultimately they learn something about themselves. They learn something about the person. In your book, it seems to have this kind of very suspenseful, dark thread to it.
It does. It does. Yeah. My main thing that I wanted to show with this is that you can't stay anchored to the past. You've got to face it and you've got to forgive it so you can reach forward and move on. I kind of used Philippians 3:13 and 14 that, I reach forward to what God wants, and not looking at what's behind me, but what's ahead as my inspiration for that. And it is dark. And I've had folks along the way when I was having people read chapters and things, they tell, wow, this is kind of depressing. And I said, yeah, it is, but it ends hopeful because there are a lot of people in that situation where they've had, sometimes your family is the most painful place and the most hurtful people And I just kind of wanted to show folks getting through that and finding a way to actually find healing and find the way to cut that anchor to the past. And, that I just kind of felt like when I was writing it, it did need to go through that because it's easy to let go of the things that didn't really hurt you, but it's those really deep, the things that leave the biggest scars that are hard to let go of. And I just was very much driven, I guess, as the best way to say it, is to show that, hey, there is a way to do this. And it's not perfect and it's not clean. It's very messy. Cleaning up the past is often very messy.
Literally in your book, it's messy.
It is. Yeah. And the idea of the hoarded house, I have to honestly say I had never seen an episode of Hoarders, and I actually caught one. I don't even know what I was doing. I was flipping through channels and happened to see them showing an image of somebody's house. And I was just astounded. I mean, I know I sat there with my jaw hanging up thinking, oh my gosh, how would someone live in that? And then the thought came to me, boy, that'd be a great place to hide something you didn't want anyone to find.
Did you read Ramona Richards did a book?
I did, yes. Murder in the Family, yes. And she did such a great job with that. When I was reading that, I laughed out loud because I thought, oh, yep, she and I were on the same page.
You absolutely are. So if you are fascinated by stories about hoarders, you want to pick up Ramona's book.
Oh, yes.
You pick up Donna Muma's book.
Oh, yes, please pick up mine.
And I read a book by Marie Bostwick. Her new book is about a girl who has to come home and clean out her aunt's Charleston home where she's been a hoarder for decades and nobody knew. So,
and I think too, a lot of us are at the age where we're having to go and clean out our parents' homes because our parents are, in a change of life. And a lot of times you find stuff there that you think, what in the world did they keep this for? And you're thinking, you're finding report cards from when they were in elementary school and things like that. So that may have been on my mind too when I was writing it, because we were in that stage of life when I kind of started the book. And, it's just life gets packed away. And, and in my book, there's a lot of life stuck in that hoarded house that needs to be sifted through. And as these two main characters,
I want you to write that down and put it on a wall saying, That was good, Donna. That's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted it to be as they clean out this house, they kind of clean out each other and their past.
Yes.
And that was the best way I could think to actually symbolize that.
I think that's great. I love good metaphor. Listen, you got a
Thank
metaphor
you.
you can carry through the whole story. I am here for that. So then, okay. Total like Frady Cat. I don't read suspense except for Lynn Blackburn because she's my friend.
Okay.
And I don't read scary books and I don't watch scary movies. So when you say it's seasoned with suspense, like let's level our suspense here on a scale of 1 to 5. Finding dead bodies in this house, or
what now? I missed that.
Are we finding dead bodies in this house?
No.
Okay. All right.
There are roaches because it's a house in Florida. And if you're going to have a messy house in Florida, you're going to have roaches.
Palmetto here.
I'm sorry.
We call in South Carolina we call those palmetto bugs.
Yes. Yeah. These are same thing. And hate when you step on them because they crunch. I hate those. Oh yeah, but yeah, there's roaches there. There is a lot of the suspense comes from the two main characters, the sisters, remembering what happened to them in the past at the hands of their mother. And they do not call her mother. They call her Veronica because she was so awful she didn't deserve to be called mother. And they never call her mom. She is Veronica from the beginning to the end. And a lot of the suspense comes from those flashbacks. But then also they find a lot of weird stuff in midst of this house. And these weird things have a story to tell. Yeah. And once they start kind of putting those pieces together, there's some suspense there is like, okay, where is this going? What does this mean? And then certain things come together and it looks like it might be one thing. And then all of a sudden they find out, nope, it's something else. And then there's someone there that you're not quite sure if they're a good person or the bad person until you get to the end. And so there's a little bit of suspense there. But, for the most part, it comes from what they went through at the hands of their
emotional suspense.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. Their mother's a complete psycho. I mean, she's just a horrific psycho.
Well, I don't know why you named her Veronica.
There was just something about that name that fit. She was actually the first character that really came to life for me. And when I was doing my research, I was looking at, because one of the characters has OCD. So I was doing a lot of research in that. But I wanted the character of Veronica to be a nasty personality. And I was, I kind of thought, I want her to be a psycho. I want her to just be horrible because it just seemed to fit what needed to be there. Yeah. And as I was looking at, the psychological traits, it just hit me one day. She's a Veronica. She didn't need something that's sweet and soft. She needs something that to me had a bit of an edge to it. And that's the name that came and it fit. And I never changed it.
I love it when you have those moments where characters' names that's their name and they can't have another name. And don't tell me I need to change my character's name. My partners are constantly like, but they're both 4-letter names. And I'm like, what's your point? Like,
right. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes they just kind of walk on the stage and announce, I am this, and don't try to make me anybody else.
Don't think that you have an opinion, author, because you don't. Well, we are kind of coming up on the end of our time. So I want to give people a chance to ask more questions if they have any more questions. And while they're asking, I want to know, Donna, is there a character that you identified with? And we're assuming it's not Veronica.
No, it wasn't Veronica. Probably I identified with the character of Asia the most because she's a little bit more like me. She's a little more analytical. She's a little more not quick to be emotional, but still kind of always in her head because I tend to always have something running through my head all the time. Mm-hmm. It's either a story or I'm running through the to-do list or I'm running through my kids to do. I mean, I have 2 college-aged boys, but I still constantly have to remind people of what needs to be done, or did you do that, and just those kinds of things. And I kind of related to that she's always got this constant dialogue in her head.
Okay.
And the probably kind of her tendency to kind of want to try to forget a lot. I had more fun writing Ivy. I don't know why. I guess maybe because she is the direct opposite to me. I just had a lot of fun with her because she just blurted out everything, and was so sassy and so feisty.
Yeah.
And she was kind of, sometimes she kind of felt like that person on the shoulder was like, oh, are you really going to say that? You really going to make that happen? So she is almost my little inner critic there.
That is fun. I think it's true that it's easier to write characters who are nothing like you than it is to write characters who are exactly.
I think so. I think
that's a true statement. So I skipped this earlier, and our kind production manager is reminding me that you put in I saw on your website that you said your parents had a favorite saying, and it was, it's not important that you got knocked down, but that you get back up.
Mm-hmm.
And that has kind of become your life mantra. And listening to your publishing story, I would say absolutely, because publishing is a journey of getting knocked down, and then having to pick back up.
Oh yeah.
So what we want to know, audience, is, do you have a mantra for your life? And we want to hear what it is. So tell us, what's something that has inspired you and kind of helped keep you going? And yours came from your parents, correct, Donna?
Oh yeah. Yeah, having a farm, you don't have a lot of time to cry over anything. My dad oftentimes said, that's just life. That's just the way it is. That's the way things go. And, in farming, if your crop fails, yeah, you feel bad about it, but you plow the land over again and you plant something else and you keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you don't, you're not going to eat, or you're not going to have any money, you're going to go under. So you just have to keep always moving forward. You can't sit and worry about what you couldn't change and what already happened. And that was kind of with everything. If we did bad on a test, it was, study harder for the next one.
Right.
You feel bad for like 10 minutes and then get ready and study harder for the next one. Or, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get first chair in the band, do your best at second chair and then work your way up. That was just kind of their thing, is that you just don't, you don't sit and cry and feel sorry for yourself. You've got to keep moving forward.
I think that is absolutely probably what gave you the perseverance to continue.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so many people, they say like 80% of people want to write a book. Actually, I sat at a table today with women who said, oh, I would love to write a book. I mean, I have ideas. Where do you even start with that? And once you've done it multiple times, you kind of have this sense of, well, you can do it. Like I'm always telling people, anybody can write a book. You can absolutely.
Right.
But you've got to sit down and you've got to do it. And, I think that's where a lot of people just feel like that's going to be the hard part, is the sitting down and actually.
It is. And learning the craft. I know for me, probably one of the hardest things was learning how to show and not tell.
Yes.
It seems like such a simple concept, but
this is a great way to segue, because we wanted to give a little shout out to Word
Weavers. Yes.
So tell us, Donna, what is Word Weavers for people who don't know?
Word Weavers is an international organization of writers, and we, I don't remember how many countries now that we're in. I know it's a lot.
A lot.
Well, but we have chapters where you meet in person, or online chapters, and we meet once a month, and we focus on community, critique, and conference. And I know for me that once a month meeting with all my Word Weavers, the Tampa Word Weavers chapter. Hey, y'all. My book wouldn't be where it is without them. We bring our things in and we sit down and we go over it with each other. And it's all about encouraging. And our thing is praise, polish, and praise. We praise what's really good. We help you polish. We help each other polish what needs to be cleaned up. And then we praise again. And we're not in competition with each other. We're all about, we're on a mission. We've all been given a job here. We've been given a calling, and we just want to help each other get the best words out there that we can.
Oh, thanks for throwing that up there, Word Weavers.
Yes, go Word Weavers.
Actually, you put the dash in there, because if you don't put the dash in there, you will not find.
Yep.
And they have lots of local chapters. Are y'all meeting in person again, Donna?
Yes, we just started in June, and I'm actually the president of our chapter again. We had our president moved, so I was the vice president. So I stepped up, and I had served as our chapter's president. I think about 4 years ago now. Mm-hmm. But I love all my little word weaver buddies, and we send stuff to each other, even during the month when we're not between our meetings, just because we're dedicated to helping each other get better.
I think critique groups are absolutely what every writer needs. You need people you can trust with your words.
Yes.
And who are not going to be afraid to say, look, this is not working. Not bad. It's just not working.
Right.
And
well,
most chapters are now meeting in person, but there are online groups. So there
are online groups, yeah. So if you're, if that's a format that would work better for you, go on the Word Weavers website and see if there's one that's got space for you. Because I wouldn't be here published without them.
It's a great testimony for Word Weavers. So does anybody have any more questions as we wrap up here for Donna? Any more questions? We'll give them a minute. Okay.
Well, while they're doing that, I'll talk about the little thing with the prizes here.
Okay. Sure.
So the 2 orange scented candles. I picked these because they were very nostalgic for me. I grew up in what used to be Orange Grove country. And every year, we would get the oranges from the packing house, fresh, and they were wonderful. And I also remember when the orange blossoms bloomed, how that smelled. And one of these reminds me of that smell, kind of that combination of the orange blossom and how those oranges used to smell when they were so fresh off the tree and you were getting ready to eat them. And they were just, that just wonderful, wonderful taste. Yeah. And then the other one has a citrusy smell to it, but it reminded me of grapefruit. And when I was growing up, I grew up in this teeny tiny little church in Coleman, Florida. It was First Baptist Coleman. Mm-hmm. And all the little ladies in our church had grapefruit trees in their backyard. And they would just, they'd scrub them off and they'd bring these bags and bags of grapefruit to church, passing them out to everybody. And I'm not a fan of grapefruit, but I did like the fact that this candle smelled like one and kind of reminded me of those sweet little ladies in our church. Because, as any kid who grew up in the South, the sweet little ladies in your church they have some bearing on how you grow up, because they all think they're your mother. And, if your mother's not around to get on to you, they are more than happy to stand up there and do that. So it kind of reminded me of those little ladies that I grew up knowing. And then the journal, I think it's called a philodendron or a monstera plant. I don't know, but it's this big tropical plant that I see everywhere now where I live, because I live on the West Coast in the Tampa Bay area. So it's more tropical than where I grew up.
Oh, speaking of, people are asking where you grew up.
I grew up in Sumter County, Florida, which is where the book is set. And I grew up on my parents' dairy farm, just a little bit out of this tiny little town called Coleman, which I still don't think. I think it's a dot on the map if you were to look at a map, but you'd have to use probably a magnifying glass to be able to read the name, because it's so tiny. I mean, I don't even think they have 800 people living there now. I mean, it's so tiny. Wow. But yeah, that's where I grew up. And I didn't intend to set the book in Sumter County. It just happened. As I was writing, I intended for it to be set in Georgia. And when I was writing that first chapter, Florida stuff kept coming in, and I kept, wait, that's not Georgia. And I'd erase it, start over, and Florida stuff kept coming in. So I was like, okay, apparently we're set in Florida rather than Georgia. And then as I was typing, a couple of things from what I remembered at home, the oak trees and the Spanish moss came, and I thought, you know what? This isn't just Florida. This is Sumter County, Florida. Mm-hmm. So I just went with it.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
So,
Taryn wants to know, is the book YA or adult or both?
It's adult. I was surprised on Amazon. It has it in one of the categories that it has it ranked in is coming of age. And my 2 characters are in their 30s. So I thought coming of age was a little younger than that, but
categories are always interesting. One time I was number 1 in classical fiction and anthologies.
Well, go you. That's a
very
pretty
classic, y'all.
I'm saying.
I mean, I did write my first book pre-COVID, which I think now that's just like the classical time period, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, pre-COVID, yeah. Yeah, we were all changed after that.
Let me make sure we haven't missed. Oh, here's one. What is your writing routine or your favorite writing spot?
Oh gosh, I probably am the worst to ask that. I don't really have a writing routine. My writing gets plugged in between my real life. Our youngest son has cerebral palsy and he's in college, so he does not drive. So when he is going to college in person, mom is his chauffeur. So I'm driving him where he needs to go. And we have a very energetic dog and, all of that. So my writing kind of gets plugged in where I've got 2 hours here, 3 hours there. There are times when I say, okay, everybody's on their own for the next 4 hours. Don't come see me before 5 o'clock. I write in my room. This is my desk right behind me here. And I'm right in my bedroom. So I go and shut the door and nobody's allowed to come in, and I'll write, ideally I could write all day, probably from early in the morning till late at night. I've done that a couple of times, but realistically, not so much. So I kind of work it in as I can, usually in the afternoons. I tend to get house chores done in the morning and then I work all afternoon.
I agree with Taryn that it's great that you actually don't have a routine, because sometimes people need to hear it's okay to not have a routine. Ultimately, you figure out what works for you, and that's what you do, and that
absolutely. Yep.
And that's all that matters. Someone else, I think somebody else was asking, how did your writing impact your family? But I feel like you kind of answered that a little bit. That they just had to sort of learn to do some things on their own every now and then.
They did. And I mean, again, we've got one adult son who's out of the house, but he's in grad school and lives close by. So he comes by and visits on the weekends. And then my husband normally works out of the house, but with COVID, he's been at home for the last year and a half. And so is our youngest, because he was in college and they did everything online. So, they've learned to, when mom needs some time out, nobody comes back here.
They know, dude, that's the routine. And
that's the routine.
Yeah, I love
it. The dog, not so much. He comes in, but he'll jump on the bed and he's happy to sleep on the bed. So he supervises.
He's your emotional support animal.
He's my yes.
Perfect. Well, I hope that everyone had a wonderful time hanging out with us tonight. I think we got some great comments.
Yes,
Taryn cracking people up. So Taryn, thanks for coming over. Thank you so much to everyone who came, especially your word weavers people. I love seeing them.
Oh, yes.
That is so great. Once again, you can probably meet Donna in person at FCWC in October. Early bird special ends July 1st. And you can follow her on social media. Donna, tell us where you'd like to send them. Instagram, Facebook, what's your favorite?
I hang out on Facebook most of the time. I'm on Instagram periodically. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not there much. I've kind of avoided Twitter this past year.
That's what's everyone.
Yeah. And then I also have a website that you can come. I've got you can sign up for my newsletter. I haven't really started anything yet. That's kind of my summer project after my book kind of launches.
Sign up for the newsletter now, and then you'll be in from the very beginning. And
absolutely. Yep. That's it. Perfect.
That's what you need to do. So find Donna on Facebook, Donna Muma. Follow her Facebook page. Go to her website, which is donnamuma.com. It's very easy. Sign up for her newsletter. You can follow A Rough Draft Life on Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me, Lindsay P. Brackett, in either of those places. And you can find more about my books on my website, lindsaypbrackett.com.
And hers are great.
Over here dropping she dropped your Twitter for you. Yeah, and don't go follow either of us on Twitter. We will not be responding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there every once in a while, but I just kind of drifted away this year. I'm trying to get into Instagram. I'm not real huge on taking pictures, but I'm trying to get into that because I kind of like the idea of posting a picture and telling a little story about that. That's kind of intriguing. So I'm trying to build that up.
That's my favorite part about Instagram. I prefer Instagram myself. But you do get really, Facebook is good engagement. It's a good place to have conversations and to join readers groups. In fact, if you're looking for a reader group, I am a founding member of Her Novel Collective, and we would love to invite all authors and readers to come over and hang out with us, where we talk about books and writing and all the fun things that are inspiring us. But go out, edit your life, as we say on A Rough Draft Life. Edit your life, read Donna's book, follow us on social media. Be sure to share this interview. Make sure you've commented on everything so you're entered to win a prize. I think we'll close it. You want to give them till midnight, Donna, or you want to close it in the morning?
Midnight's fine.
Okay. So we'll take any comments that are left before midnight. You'll be entered to win the prize, so people can go back and rewatch this. Feel free to share it to your pages. And thanks once again so much for hanging out with us. You can find Donna's book on Amazon. You can find it through indie bookshops at bookshop.org, or you can buy it directly from our publisher at shoplpc.com. And let's see, Donna, are you doing any events where they can get a signed copy?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I've looked into. A lot of our little indie bookshops down here are just starting to reopen. So I was going to give them a few weeks and then start approaching. But if and when I do have events, I will definitely announce them on my author page and my Facebook page.
And through her newsletter that you all need to sign up for.
And through my newsletter, yes. See, I have to get that in mind.
You can do it. You can do it. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight. We had a great time, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.